You have a pattern in your relationships. Maybe you pull away when someone gets too close. You feel anxious when someone is not immediately responsive to you. Maybe you find yourself going back and forth, craving closeness and then feeling suffocated by it. And you have probably tried to understand this pattern by looking at your adult relationships. But the origin is much earlier than that, and understanding it will change how you see yourself and the people around you in a fundamental way. Human beings have an inbuilt need for close emotional bonds, and at the earliest bonds we form with caregivers shape a kind of an internal blueprint for all the relationships that follow. Psychologist Mary Ainsworth built on this through a series of carefully observed experiments, watching how infants responded when their caregivers left and returned. She identified distinct patterns, which she called attachment styles. The securely attached child was the one whose caregiver was consistently responsive, and the baby used the caregiver as a safe base. They became upset when the parent or caregiver left and was comforted when they returned. The anxiously attached child, whose caregiver was inconsistent, became highly distressed and difficult to soothe. The infant was hypervigilant to any sign of abandonment. And lastly, the avoidantly attached child. They were the ones whose caregiver was emotionally distant. They learned to suppress their need for closeness and appear self-sufficient. These patterns formed in the first years of life do not just stay in childhood. They travel with us into friendships, romantic relationships, and professional environments. You can see your attachment style in a very specific way. If you are anxiously attached, you may read too much into silences. An unreturned message creates disproportionate worry. You need more reassurance than feels comfortable to ask for. When a relationship feels uncertain, your entire inner world destabilizes. If you are avoidantly attached, intimacy feels uncomfortable. When someone gets very close, something in you creates distance. You value independence intensely, sometimes to the point of pushing people away without meaning to. And if you have a secure attachment style, you can hold closeness and independence at the same time. Conflict does not feel like the end. You can communicate needs without excessive anxiety. These are not the personality types you chose. They are the patterns your nervous system learned when it was very young, about whether closeness is safe and whether people can be relied on. Here is what makes this one of the most important things to understand about yourself. Most relationship conflict is not really about what it appears to be about. It is about attachment needs that are not being expressed directly. Because the nervous system learned early on that expressing them was either unsafe or ineffective. When your partner's silence triggers disproportionate anxiety, that reaction is not about this silence. It is about what silence meant to you a very long time ago. When closeness makes you pull back, that is not about this person. It is about what closeness meant to you in your earliest experience of it. So your partner and you must understand that this is not overreacting. It is responding to an old script, one written before the person was old enough to write it consciously. It is very important to grow out of this pattern and also understanding that not everything is wrong with you or your partner. Identify your pattern honestly, not to label yourself permanently, but to use the script. Anxious, avoidant, or secure attachment styles are well described and easily recognizable once you know what to look for. Learn to name your attachment needs out loud to people you trust. I need a bit of reassurance here, or I might need some space right now. Saying this is not a sign of weakness. They are the adult version of what the secure infant did naturally, reaching for what they needed. Notice when your reaction in the present is being driven by the past. When a response feels much bigger than the situation deserves, that is often a sign that old wiring has been activated. Pausing to ask, is this about now or is this about then, creates the gap needed to respond rather than react. Understanding your attachment style does not rewrite your childhood, but it does something almost as valuable. It makes the invisible visible. You stop experiencing your relationship pattern as mysterious or inevitable, and you start seeing them as understandable responses to early experience, which means they are also things you can consciously work with. Your relationships become more honest because you start communicating what you actually need instead of acting out the need and hoping someone guesses. Your self-compassion grows because you stop judging yourself for having needs and start understanding where those needs came from. And over time, with awareness, with practice, and often with the support of people who are consistent and safe, the old wiring can change. Attachment styles are not destiny, they are a starting point. And knowing your starting point is always the first step to choose to be somewhere different.